morning. My name is Brad Koch, and I'm a captain here at the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department, and I currently oversee the Central Division. I want to welcome everyone who's tuning in and joining us virtually for our 2020 Police Week Awards ceremony. Normally we host this fantastic event in May, but since it's been a relatively slow year without many events going on, we thought we would bring it to you live in October. Today is a special occasion as we recognize the outstanding and incredible work our employees have done over the past year. Now, oftentimes we feel that work we do on a daily basis is ordinary, but that same work is considered extraordinary by our family, friends, and our citizens. And today we get to celebrate that work. At this time, I would like our CMPD Honor Guard to please present our colors. Those in attendance here, if you please stand. Then followed by Dre Galloway, who will grace us with the national anthem, and Chaplain Fran Cook Mahood will bless us with the invocation. Honor Guard.
Carry, hold. Forward, home. Play, prime. Play, prime. Play, prime. Play, play, prime. Play, prime. Play, prime. Play, play, prime. Play, prime. Play, prime. Ready. Turn. Detail. Halt. Pose. Color. Ready. Hunt. Present. Halt.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Order. Halt. Ready. Face. Mark time. Halt. Play. Prime. Ready. Turn. Forward. Halt. Play. Prime. Play. Prime. Play. Prime. Play. Play. Prime. Play. Prime. Play. Prime. Play. Play. Prime. Play. Prime. Play. Prime. Detail. Halt. Distance.
Please join me as we pray together. Gracious God, we give you thanks for the blessings of this day. The wind reminds us that your Spirit is always present. The political debates remind us that we have a say in our government. And this award ceremony reminds us that we are called to serve our community with compassion and professionalism. We thank you for the opportunity to celebrate those who have excelled among us, for your good work through us and your grace given to us. Some of our awardees will be called bold, some selfish, and others hero. All are CMPD officers and employees, strong and proud. As we honor these who stand out among us, may their example further our own efforts in doing the right thing, and in doing the right thing with intentionality and integrity. May each of us individually and all of us collectively bring honor to ourselves, our department, and our community, not only in what we do and how we do it, but also in who we are. Bless us that we might receive an encouraging word and genuine praise from our peers, our leaders, and from you, our God. May the awards received this day be a testament of the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department in our obligation to care for others, and as evidence of a job well done. In your name we pray. Amen.
Thank you. Those may be seated. At this time, I would invite our Chief of Police, Johnny Jennings, to the stage to say a few words. Chief Jennings.
Thank you, Brad, and welcome to our first ever virtual award ceremony. So this is your day, CMPD officers and employees, the day that we need to celebrate. And unfortunately, we had to delay, but what we didn't want to do is to let the year go by without recognizing some of the great work that the men and women of CMPD have done. I think it's a testament to the department and to the profession when you hear some of the fantastic work that's been accomplished and why we want to celebrate this. And, you know, it's been a very difficult year. I don't think anyone would deny that. 2020 is a year that everyone's looking forward to getting through and moving on to 2021 and pray for better times. But my prayer has always been that one day we get defined based on the work that you're going to hear about here today, the many great things that our employees do, and that it overshadows the few bad things that our employees have been involved in and things that we've had to endure. We have a very strong department. We have very strong officers. We have very strong non-sworn staff as well. And we're here to recognize that today. So I'm proud to be your police chief. I'm proud of what I hear every day from our citizens and from other employees about the great work that we do. And I want to make sure that we recognize that. I still believe that we are one of the finest police departments in the country, and we will continue to prove that. And when we fall down and when we slip up, we'll get up, dust ourselves off, and then we'll get better from that. So thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be here, and I look forward to hearing some of the great work that our men and women have accomplished. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Chief. And without further ado, we will get started.
Departmental awards. Patrol Training Officer of the Year Award. The Patrol Training Officer of the Year Award is presented to the PTO who has demonstrated exceptional leadership qualities in training newly sworn officers in patrol functions preliminary investigative functions, state and municipal laws, and departmental policies, practices, and procedures.
This year's recipient is Officer Dean Lauber. Officer Lauber has been a patrol training officer for 14 years. While training new officers, he takes an interest in their goals and assists them by providing opportunities for ride-alongs in specialized units and career path training. Officer Lauber always gets new officers involved in a variety of calls for service. He receives exceptional reviews from trainees and has been described as a mentor by many of them. Officer Lauber maintains a positive working relationship with his trainees even after they've completed their training, including assisting them meet their career goals. 13 of Officer Lauber's trainees have either been promoted or moved on to detectives positions in specialized units. Officer Lauber is well respected by his peers and his supervisors. Congratulations, Officer Lauber.
The School Resource Officer of the Year Award. The School Resource Officer of the Year Award is presented to the SRO who has demonstrated exceptional leadership qualities to reduce crime on school property and throughout the surrounding communities to develop a positive learning environment.
This year's recipient is Officer Eric Lowe. Officer Lowe is a school resource officer at Carmel Middle School. He conducts successful mediations between feuding students, helping them problem solve in a constructive manner and preventing physical and aggressive interactions. Officer Lowe also volunteers his expertise and experience as a police officer and parent to mentor and guide students along a path of good citizenship. In addition, Officer Lowe assists with the Right Moves for Youth program, including their annual 5K run. In fact, Officer Lowe was instrumental in coordinating a solution for pedestrian traffic flow near his school to ensure the safety of students and staff. Just one example of his outstanding work. Congratulations, Officer Lowe.
Detective of the Year Award. The Detective of the Year Award is presented to the detective whose body of work demonstrated a high degree of creativity, tenacity, and sense of urgency in solving cases.
This year's recipient is Detective Zach Hagler. In his third year as a robbery detective, Detective Hagler's work ethic earned him a spot on the FBI's Safe Streets Task Force. As a member of this prestigious task force, Detective Hagler has become the unit's answer to locating some of the most prolific offenders on the task force's radar. When Detective Hagler has a lead in a case, he does not quit until all the leads have been exhausted, and on many occasions working all night into the next day without complaint. Detective Hagler is also an integral part of the detective training program, best known to set an example of a tenacious and dedicated detective. Detective Hagler never takes full credit for his work and humbly accepts praise for it. In December of 2019, Detective Hagler was recognized by FBI Director Christopher Wray for his exceptional work in coordinating the efforts of the FBI's Safe Streets Task Force and our very own Armed Robbery Unit. Congratulations, Detective Hagler.
Telecommunicator of the Year Award. The Telecommunicator of the Year is presented to a member of the Telecommunications Division who has shown professionalism, exceptional work, and a positive attitude.
This year's recipient is Alan Bennett. Alan recently completed his 18th year and is recognized as an exceptional civilian employee. He's well respected both by his peers and officers. Alan answered over 10,000 911 calls and administrative calls during the past year and dispatches patrol officers on two of the busiest talk groups, the Central and Metro divisions. Alan is recognized for providing patrol officers seamless and extraordinary support on critical incidents, vehicle and foot pursuits often occurring at the same time, while coordinating with support units including K-9, Aviation, and the Real-Time Crime Center. In addition, Alan is recognized as a leader in the 911 Communications Division, often being asked to cover the bridge when supervisors are called into meetings. Congratulations, Alan.
The Civilian Employee of the Year Award. The Outstanding Civilian Employee of the Year is presented to a civilian member of the CMPD who has distinguished themselves through either an accumulation of exceptional contributions or in a single incident.
This year's recipient is Rob Tofano. During the past year, Rob has guided the Public Affairs Office through several positive changes to include professional development for both sworn and civilian members of the office. Rob was a catalyst for communication during the 2019 University of North Carolina Charlotte active shooter incident, working with local, state, and national media. In addition, Rob was instrumental in developing a comprehensive communications plan for other high-profile department incidents. Rob is described as a person who shows up every day ready to work and will not leave until the job is completed. Rob has provided valuable counsel to our executive leadership while also working with the City of Charlotte's Corporate Communications Department and the Fire Department. Congratulations, Rob, on this outstanding achievement.
The Sworn Employee of the Year Award. The Sworn Employee of the Year is presented to sworn members of the CMPD who distinguish themselves through either an accumulation of exceptional contributions or a single incident, and whose actions clearly place the individual well above others of equal rank or grade.
This year's recipient is Officer Josh Skipper. Officer Skipper is a 15-year veteran of the police department and is assigned to the Eastway Division. He's defined by his attention to the CMPD priorities, crime reduction, community engagement, and professional development. Officer Skipper's effort in crime reduction include making 67 arrests, 36 secondary arrests, conducting 44 field interviews, and 151 traffic stops. With his community engagement centered around youth, Officer Skipper has been involved with the Shamrock Gardens Elementary School, volunteering his time on many programs and projects, including helping physical education teachers with recess activities and the annual trunk retreat event. Officer Skipper is always seeking to make himself a better officer by becoming a patrol training officer, a crisis intervention training officer. He's a public order bike officer, a patrol rifle officer, and also participates with the Uniform Committee in testing new uniforms. CMPD is extremely proud of Officer Skipper and his accomplishments. Congratulations, Officer Skipper.
The Judy Williams Lifetime Achievement Award. Today, we pause to honor Judy Williams, the co-founder of Mothers of Murdered Offspring. In 1993, Ms. Williams co-founded the organization named Mothers of Murdered Offspring, MOMO for short, after the tragic death of her goddaughter. This incredible organization has a dual mission. One, to always support families through the cycle of grief and devastation that murder causes. Two, to create and support programs and activities that focus on the prevention of violence. As the co-founder, Ms. Williams made personal contact with every family impacted by a homicide. She remained constant in her efforts to support grieving families and held a candlelight vigil after each homicide, never to be deterred by weather or any other unfavorable conditions. Ms. Williams began every year off with a candlelight vigil and prayer for the community in hopes of reducing the number of homicides. Even when faced with health challenges, Ms. Williams continued to show up, host candlelight vigils, comfort grieving families, and support CMPD in its efforts to bring closure to the cases. Ms. Williams was selfless in her efforts and dedicated 27 years of her life to serving the Charlotte community while working with CMPD. In honor of Ms. Williams' legacy, the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department has created the Judy Williams Lifetime Achievement Award. This award is presented to citizens or organizations who, over their lifetime, have made long-term and significant contributions to the Charlotte community and have improved the quality of life for citizens or whose accomplishments have brought recognition to Charlotte. Moving forward, this award will be presented to a deserving citizen and/or organization who exemplifies the spirit of Ms. Williams in their love of community, service to families, and commitment to preventing violence.
The inaugural recipient of the Judy Williams Lifetime Achievement Award is the organization Mothers of Murdered Offspring. Very apropos. Here to receive this award are Miss Williams' son, David, his wife, Mary, and their son, Chase, Miss Williams' daughter, Iana Howard, Miss Judy's youngest sister, Miss Mary Howard Strong Rodriguez, and also Miss Lisa Crawford, the administrator of MoMo.
The Medal of Valor Award. The Medal of Valor may be awarded to employees who have distinguished themselves by acts of extraordinary bravery in the performance of an act to preserve life or property with the clear risk of serious injury or death present during the action.
Our first recipient of the Medal of Valor is Officer Chad Wallen. On February 28th of this year, Officer Wallen responded to a possible active shooter call for service at a party. Upon arriving, he observed hundreds of people running out of the building. He immediately entered the building and searched for the threat. While surveying the panicked crowd, he identified the threat and advanced on a male pointing a handgun directly at the midsections of two individuals. Officer Wallen navigated through the crowd and advanced on the suspect while giving him verbal commands. Due to the suspect's proximity to other citizens, Officer Wallen immediately closed the distance on the armed subject and tackled him. One of the individuals was injured. However, the actions of Officer Wallen, while placing him in greater harm's way, prevented further injury or death to others, and his bravery is to be commended. Congratulations, Officer Wallen. Our next recipients of the Medal of Valor are Officer Kevin Lavelle, Detective Shane Matthews, and Sergeant Andrew Greenlees. Now, in addition to the Medal of Valor, they are also receiving the Life Saving Award, which is given to employees for saving a human life. On November 15th of 2019, Sergeant Greenlees and Officers Lavelle and Matthews were working in a secondary employment capacity at the epicenter located at 210 East Trade Street. Shortly after 2 a.m., while making sure citizens were leaving and providing general security, Officer Lavelle and Matthews were standing on South College Street when they heard gunshots at the corner of College and Trade. Two subjects were involved in a physical confrontation in the middle of Trade Street when one subject began firing a handgun. The victim sustained gunshot wounds to his leg. However, the suspect refused to obey the officer's commands to drop the gun. Due to the suspect's refusal to obey the officer's commands, Officers Lavelle and Matthews were forced to discharge their duty weapon at the suspect, fatally wounding him, but saving the victim's life and preventing any gunshot injuries to other citizens in the area as well as themselves. The sergeant and officers assessed the level of response for each subject and applied pressure to their wounds until medic arrived. Their actions ended the threat to themselves and others, including innocent bystanders. Congratulations, Sergeant Greenlees, Officer Lavelle, and Detective Matthews.
The Medal of Merit Award. The Medal of Merit Award recognizes CMPD employees who have performed admirably in response to specific situations. The incident may have been of an emergency nature or a routine event, but the employee's exceptional performance merits special recognition.
Our first recipient is Detective Joe Dollar. While working off duty, Detective Dollar saw a suspect wanted for a recent homicide in the Steel Creek Division. He called for on-duty units to respond to apprehend the suspect. This individual fled on foot when he was confronted by officers, and the on-duty officers were able to apprehend him thanks to the diligence of Detective Dollar. Because of this, a wanted homicide suspect was arrested. These actions enhanced public safety through the apprehension of this violent subject. Congratulations, Detective Dollar. Our next recipients of the Medal of Merit are Officer Robert Jenkins and Officer Caleb Corrales. Officer Corrales and Officer Jenkins encountered a subject who had called 911 and said he was going to kill someone. He specifically said he was going to kill a police officer. The officers found this individual, who was in fact armed with a knife, and attempted to have a dialogue with him. He told Officer Corrales in Spanish to go ahead and kill him. The two officers were in a confined business. However, they were able to use furniture and space to provide distance and time, and were able to convince this individual to drop the knife. Once he dropped the knife, he was detained and later interviewed, where he explained that he had planned to have an officer shoot and kill him that day. This individual was transported for a mental evaluation. Congratulations, Officer Jenkins and Officer Corrales. Our next recipients of the Medal of Merit are Detective Keelan Childers and Detective Mary Wood. On March 15th of 2019, the victim, an armed services member, was being escorted by an Air Force officer following an unsuccessful suicide attempt. While on her layover here in Charlotte, the victim escaped her escort, leaving behind a suicide note. Missing persons detectives Childers and Wood were contacted and responded. They reviewed video from the airport and were able to identify a cab that the victim used to leave the airport. They tracked the cab to a nearby Walmart where the victim purchased rope and sleeping pills. The victim then left the Walmart on foot and a ground search was initiated. Detective Childers and Wood were able to determine the victim's last known location based on a social media message that she had posted, which was later determined to be a suicide note. As a result of this new search location, officers quickly located the victim. She was unconscious and in very unstable condition. Had she remained outside, she would have died as a result of the drug overdose and exposure to temperatures. She was transported to the hospital where she remained in the ICU for 3 days. The victim has subsequently been able to receive treatment for mental health condition and has pursued a successful career as a meteorologist. Congratulations, Detective Childers and Wood. Our final recipients of the Medal of Merit this year are Lieutenant Jesus Rendon, Sergeant Reggie Jenkins, and Officer Jared Moore. On April 28th of 2019, Sergeant Jenkins was parked on South College Street in front of the epicenter. He observed a crowd of people running across College Street. One of these subjects in the crowd shot another subject in the neck. Sergeant Jenkins actually witnessed this shooting from approximately 20 feet away. The suspect fled the scene on foot into the nearby Bank of America Plaza parking garage. Sergeant Jenkins followed this individual, who was armed with a handgun, into the garage. Sergeant Jenkins, along with Lieutenant Rendon, found the suspect hiding in a vehicle, ordered him out, and this individual thankfully complied. While Sergeant Jenkins was in the parking deck, Officer Moore provided first aid to the victim, who had a gunshot wound to the neck. This individual was transported by medic and survived his injury. Congratulations, Lieutenant Rendon, Sergeant Jenkins, and Officer Moore.
The Civilian Medal of Valor Award. The Civilian Medal of Valor may be awarded to citizens who have distinguished themselves by acts of extraordinary bravery, heroism, or sacrifice while preserving the life, liberty, and safety of others.
This year's recipient is Cadet Eric Diepold. On April 30th, 2019, shortly after 5:30 p.m., University of North Carolina Charlotte student and ROTC cadet Eric Diepold was walking on campus when he heard shots being fired. Unarmed, he picked up a rock and ran into the building to stop the threat. He located UNCC Sergeant Gundocker, the suspect, and numerous victims in an upstairs classroom. He began treating a severely wounded victim. And when the suspect began to act up from a dazed state, Mr. Diepold fought and controlled him. When the suspect was under control, Mr. Diepold returned to his focus to providing medical treatment to the victims. He used his shirt to attempt to stop the bleeding on one of the gunshot wounds, and once his shirt was soaked, he took off his pants and used them to try to stop the bleeding. When CMPD arrived, he immediately identified himself as helping and not a threat, and continued to work with the officers to provide medical care and assistance. Thank you for your dedication, and congratulations, Mr. Diepold.
Life-Saving Award. The Life Saving Award recognizes an employee for saving a human life. This year, we have a record 40 recipients of this prestigious award.
Our first recipients of the Life Saving Award are Officer Timothy Paxton, Officer Catherine Del Rio, and Officer Thomas Mertens. On September 24, 2020, Officers Mertens, Paxton, and Del Rio responded to a suicidal subject call for service at a local hospital in the Providence Division. They located an individual who was threatening suicide while sitting on a concrete wall on the third floor of the parking deck. The officers worked together to talk the subject and distract him so that they could grab him and pull him safely from the ledge. They placed him in handcuffs to prevent him from harming himself again. This rapid response and quick thinking of these officers contributed to saving the subject's life. Congratulations, Officer Paxton, Officer Del Rio, and Officer Mertens. Our next recipients are Officer Alyssa O'Brien, Officer Carmelita Jimenez, and Officer Chris Dominguez Jimenez. Responding to a call on December 22, 2019, these officers arrived at a 7-Eleven and found a large amount of blood in an unresponsive individual. They immediately administered first aid. These officers applied pressure to the victim while also applying a tourniquet. The actions provided by these officers saved the victim's life. Congratulations, Officer O'Brien, Officer Jimenez, and Officer Dominguez Jimenez. Our next recipient is Officer Michael Morgan. On December 16, 2019, officers were dispatched in reference to a female bleeding significantly from a cut to her wrist, which she suffered accidentally while moving broken glass inside her residence. Another officer, and is that Tyler Poe? And Tyler Poe's here, late addition. So both officers, another officer arrived second on scene, Officer Poe, and applied direct pressure to the wound along with pressure to her brachial artery to stem the flow of blood coming from a large laceration on her right wrist. Officer Poe was unable to access his tourniquet. However, Officer Morgan quickly grabbed his from his belt and applied it to the victim's upper right arm. The rapid response of these officers contributed to saving the victim's life. Congratulations, Officer Morgan and Officer Poe. Next recipients of our Life Saving Award are Officer Daniel Moore and Officer Olin Lester. On September 9, 2019, these officers responded to a robbery call for service at a gas station located in the 5300 block of Monroe Road. After the scene was secure, medic responded and transported the victim to the hospital with a gunshot wound to the chest. Once the victim was transported, the officers turned their attention to investigating the incident and locating the suspect. They found a blood trail which led them to the location of the suspect with the aid of one of our department's canine units. While apprehending the suspect, Officers Moore, Hickey, and Lester noticed that he had 2 gunshot wounds in the legs, one of which was bleeding profusely. Officer Moore applied the tourniquet to the suspect's left leg to stop the bleeding, and these officers' quick response resulted in the safe apprehension of the suspect and saved the life of both the suspect and the victim. Congratulations, Officer Moore and Officer Lester. Our next recipient is Officer Olin Lester. On June 8, 2019, Officer Lester was traveling on I-485 on his way to work when he observed a vehicle crash where the vehicle was on fire and the driver was pinned inside. Officer Lester immediately grabbed his fire extinguisher and ran to the vehicle. He emptied the fire extinguisher, keeping the flames from reaching the trapped occupant. He then obtained a fire extinguisher from a medic to keep the flames once again from reaching the occupant. After emptying this second extinguisher, he ran to a patrol vehicle that had arrived on scene and retrieved a third extinguisher. The fire department arrived and took control of the fire and safely extracted the occupant. Officer Lester's actions contributed to this survival. Congratulations, Officer Lester. Our next recipient is Officer Matthew Leahy. Officer Leahy responded to an assist fire call for service in reference to an apartment building on fire. Upon arrival, Officer Leahy and other Steel Creek officers began assisting the fire department with clearing the structure, which was fully engulfed on the third floor. Officer Leahy breached the front door to one of the apartments, and he could hear faint screams of a woman calling for help inside the apartment. Officer Leahy pulled the woman through the smoke and from the fire that was filling the apartment. He then assisted her to get medical treatment. Officer Leahy's quick thinking and response saved this citizen's life. In all, 11 of the 12 apartments in this building were occupied. Now, this tenant was the only resident injured during the fire, and the building was destroyed. The resident was transported to the hospital where she was treated for first and second degree burns and smoke inhalation, but thankfully she survived. Congratulations, Officer Leahy. The next recipients of the Life Saving Award are Officer Chelsea Christian and Officer Alyssa O'Brien. Officer Christian was the first to arrive to the scene when a male subject was giving CPR to the victim. She assessed the victim and then called medic and updated them on the victim's condition. The victim stopped breathing and no pulse was felt. Officer O'Brien arrived at this time and began giving sternum rubs to the victim's chest and still got no response. She also could not find a pulse. The two officers started performing CPR. A fire department arrived approximately 5 minutes later and were able to regain a pulse. Jennifer Slagle of medic stated that the victim would not have lived without the actions of these two officers. Congratulations, Officer Christian and Officer O'Brien. The next recipients are Officer Roderick Johnston, Officer Bradley Potter, and Officer Ryan Lack. On April 30th, 2019, multiple calls for service were dispatched in reference to an active shooter at the University of North Carolina Charlotte's campus. The comments of the calls advised that multiple people had been shot, and it was unknown at the time the location of the shooter or, in fact, how many individuals were shooting. Officers began responding from divisions all across the city. Officer Roderick Johnson and other Hickory Grove Crime Reduction Unit members responded and arrived on campus shortly after the calls were dispatched. They entered the Kennedy building and located the victims inside one of the upstairs classrooms. University City Crime Reduction Officer Potter was already inside the room and had subdued and handcuffed this individual. Officer Johnston and Potter carried one of the victims out of the building while Officer Lack provided security. Once outside, they located a University of North Carolina Charlotte police vehicle and put this individual inside. Officer Johnston rode in the back seat, continuing to provide aid, while Officer Lack drove the vehicle the short distance to the nearby hospital emergency room. The actions taken by Officer Johnston, Potter, and Lack resulted in the victim surviving his injuries and ultimately saved his life. These officers exhibited bravery, effective decision-making, and teamwork during a chaotic and dangerous situation. Congratulations, Officers Johnston, Potter, and Lack. Our next recipient is Officer Brett Helms. No. Jenkins. All right. All right, we'll get to Jenkins in a minute. Oh, Officer Robert Jenkins. He's a late surprise addition. I'm sure you at home didn't realize he was coming. Officer Jenkins responded to an attempted suicide call. He arrived to find this individual unconscious with heavy active bleeding from the subject's left arm. The subject had already lost a lot of blood and had been found by his girlfriend. Officer Jenkins applied a tourniquet to the subject's arm and stopped the bleeding. Now, his actions directly saved the victim's life. Congratulations, Officer Jenkins. Our next recipient is Officer Bill Broadway. An individual had sustained a gunshot wound to the back of his head, causing him to fall immediately and lose consciousness within seconds. Officer Broadway and other officers got to the victim in less than 1 minute and immediately began rendering life-saving first aid efforts. The victim survived the initial injury and was hospitalized, where he later passed away approximately a week later. While tragic, the initial life-saving efforts allowed this individual to live after the initial incident. Friends and family were able to be with him and comfort him and ultimately say goodbye, providing closure for the family. Congratulations, Officer Broadway. Our next recipient of the Life Saving Award is Lieutenant Jeremiah Blow. On January 12, 2020, Officer Smith and Lieutenant Blow were working in an off-duty capacity for Bank of America when they were notified by G4S security of a fight between two individuals on 5th Street at the light rail tracks. They both responded to the fight but quickly realized it was an armed robbery in progress. This individual had been stabbed by the suspect 3 times. Lieutenant Blow used his first aid training to apply direct pressure to the wounds. Now, if not for his quick action, the victim would have bled out on the sidewalk before fire and medic arrived. Congratulations, Lieutenant Blow. Our next recipient is Officer Ricardo Adames Aquino. 2 civilians were driving on an overpass when they noticed a walking cane on the sidewalk, which seemed strange to them. They turned around to investigate and saw a white female clinging to the bridge supports. One individual called 911, and the other, Mr. Izquierdo, grabbed the subject to keep her from falling. Officer Adames Aquino and another officer were passing by on an unrelated call for service. Now, Officer Adames Aquino assisted Mr. Izquierdo by holding the subject's arm and leg until fire department arrived. Once they arrived, they were able to attach straps to the individual until a ladder truck could safely remove her from the outside of the bridge. If not for the actions of Officer Adames Aquino, the subject would have either fallen or jumped, causing serious injury or death. Congratulations, Officer Adames Aquino. Our final recipients of the Life Saving Award this year are Officer Evan Seymour and Officer Daniel McCooey. On August 2, 2019, a male subject was threatening to jump off the Harrisburg Road Bridge over I-485. Officers McCooey and Seymour responded and made contact with this individual, who in fact went over the guardrail. The officers grabbed onto this individual's wrists, keeping him from falling. Another officer and an additional private citizen ran to help the struggling officers and collectively pulled this individual back over the guardrail to safety. Congratulations, Officer Seymour and Officer McCooey.
the Civilian Employee Service Award. The Civilian Employee Service Award is presented to a civilian police employee who exemplifies the mission and principles of CMPD.
Our first recipient of the Civilian Employee Service Award is Benita Dees of the Missing Persons Unit. The department's Missing Persons Unit has been a member agency with Project Lifesaver International since 2015. Investigative technician Benita Dees has served as the program coordinator since its inception. Project Lifesaver's mission is to use state-of-the-art technology in assisting those who care for victims of Alzheimer's, dementia, autism, Down syndrome, and any other cognitive conditions that cause those affected to wander and become lost. Investigative Technician Dees is dedicated and committed to the success of this Project Lifesaver program. She works tirelessly with clients and caregivers and frequently adjusts her schedule in order to accommodate after-hours requests from family members. Benita's performance and passion for this program meet and exceed all aspects of the Civilian Employee Service Award. Congratulations, Benita. Our next recipient of the Civilian Employee Service Award is Armando Rojas of the Metro Division. Over the past year, Armando has worked as the investigative technician at the Metro Division team office. From day one, Armando has embraced his position and made everyone around him feel valued. He took on an enormous workload. All these responsibilities were handled with ease due to his excellent communication skills and extraordinary organizational skills. One of the biggest assets Armando provides for the citizens and officers alike is his ability to speak Spanish. Over the past year, Armando has assisted citizens with their reports and or just answered their questions. His ability to calm those callers has paid dividends. He's also assisted several officers with their calls for service and interviews. In fact, he's gone out into the field with detectives as well as officers so that they could successfully complete follow-ups. In every circumstance, Armando made the Spanish-speaking citizen feel good about calling the police and was able to ease their nervousness about dealing with the department. His passion for this department and the citizens he serves is infectious and rubs off on all those around him. Congratulations, Armando.
The Citizen Service Award. The Citizen Service Award is presented to citizens who have worked with the police and exhibited considerable initiative and resolve in one or more of the following areas: addressing problems within the community, improving neighborhood safety and conditions, serving as a community leader as demonstrated by their actions, service, or work with youth, and or have accomplished some other extraordinary act of service to CMPD or the community.
Our first recipients of the Citizens Service Award are Karina Stevens and Osa Bear. Osa and Karina are both Atrium Healthcare exposure control nurses, and they're being recognized for their outstanding work with the department's exposure control program. The CMPD benefits from a strong partnership with Atrium Healthcare that results in the seamless care of our employees. Ms. Bear and Ms. Stevens are the exposure control nurses who work with the department in conjunction with exposure testing. They've been accessible at all hours of the day and even on the weekends. Their partnership allows for quick communication with employees and for follow-up treatment with Concerta. The timeliness of this information also helps reduce the stress employees undergo during an exposure. This partnership has been crucial to the CMPD as we continue to provide the proper exposure care to our employees. Ms. Bear and Ms. Stevens are to be commended for the exceptional service, and the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department honors them for their work. Congratulations. The next recipient of the Citizen Service Award is Kelly Redfern. Miss Redfern, along with her husband, Jerry, referred her teenage son to the REACH program in 2017. Community engagement officers worked with her son for over a year through facilitated life skills lessons and mentoring initiatives. To thank CMPD for the turnaround she witnessed in her son, Mr. and Mrs. Redfern contacted Lieutenant LeBron Evans and asked how they could give back. Ms. Redfern said that she wanted to provide shoes for the youth currently in this program. Now, most of the young men in the REACH program come from economically disadvantaged households. Consequently, the young men don't have access to purchase nice shoes or clothing. After more than a year, the Redferns are still providing shoes, clothing, and basic household staples to all families that CMPD has referred to them. In fact, to date, the Redferns have made donations of shoes to over 120 youths in the REACH, the Diversion, and also at the Martin Luther King Middle School, and they have done so anonymously. Congratulations, Ms. Redfern. Our final recipient of the Citizen Service Award is Cindy Decker. Cindy works harder than any volunteer at CMPD to help maintain the well-being, peace, and stability of the city of Charlotte, day, night, weekends, and weekdays. Her mission is to help the department, especially with Bridge the Difference community engagement initiatives and the department's ambassador program. Cindy was one of 10 community members Chief Putney previously acknowledged and thanked at Christmas time for her unyielding dedication to the department. Cindy wants her community to remain safe, and she believes in all the great work the men and women at the department do every day. Volunteers like Cindy truly make a difference in this community, and without her hard work, programs like the Ambassadors and Bridge the Difference would not exist. Congratulations, Cindy.
The Chiefs Award for Excellence in Policing. The Chiefs Award for Excellence in Policing may be awarded to CMPD employees who have distinguished themselves by exceptional performance that clearly benefited CMPD, its citizens, the communities we police, and/or the advancement in the field of policing in general.
Our first recipient of the Chiefs Award for Excellence in Policing is officers and sergeants for the Lytham Drive operation. First up, Officer Beth Jackson. Pictures, Laura. Next up, Officer Brian Corrado. Next up, Officer Brian Sudamak. Officer Corey Waller. Officer Andrew Richards. Officer Samantha Thompson. Sergeant Jason Haithcock. Miss Pat Barker. Assistant U.S. Attorney Seth Johnson. Miss Amanda Hefferon with the U.S. Attorney's Office. And finally, Oleg Mitnitsky with the U.S. Marshal Service. The house at 2740 Lytham Drive has long been known as a location for crime and a haven for those who commit crimes. In recent years, it's been the site of significant and serious drug-related criminal activity, including a double homicide. As a result of an enormous enforcement effort, several arrests were made. Interviews conducted and further intelligence was gathered about what was happening inside this residence. In December 2019, the U.S. Attorney's Office advised that they would accept the complaint. The civil forfeiture case was adopted and signed in February of 2020. Now, all of this was made possible by the outstanding work and collaboration between the community coordinators, patrol officers, crime reduction unit, and the rental unit. These CMPD employees and partners are to be commended for their exceptional service to residents of the Lytham Drive community. Congratulations. You guys can go. Bye. Our next recipient of the Chief's Award for Excellence in Policing is Officer Nathan Phillips as a CMPD ambassador. Officer Phillips distinguishes himself daily by exceptional performance and serves as an ambassador to the City of Charlotte for the department. Through routine patrol functions, citizen encounters, and community engagement activities, he advances the field of policing and sets an example for his peers. He shows initiative and effort that have resulted in multiple and significant arrests and multiple case clearances over a long period of time. He's been nominated and awarded the Providence Officer of the Month on many occasions, and he regularly makes significant positive contributions to the citizens of Charlotte. Officer Phillips has participated in numerous community engagement activities and is to be commended for his exceptional performance, and the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department honors him for his work. Congratulations, Officer Phillips. The next recipients for the Chief's Award for Excellence in Policing are Sergeant Andrew Studney, one at a time, Chief. We got several. Sorry. Officer James Witt. Officer Tiffany Anderson. Officer Bill Broadway. Officer Raymond St. John. Officer Sam Tucker. Officer Vinton Simpson. And finally, Officer Samantha Garrett with the Ranlow Police Department. Certain areas around the transit center and epicenter have subjects loitering for no purpose or for the purpose of criminal activity. Operation Hawkeye was a team effort supported by leadership who strongly encouraged officers to use a variety of tactics and establish strong partnerships with community leaders and members in the target areas. Led by patrol and supported by special operations, including the Bike Squad and our Crime Reduction Unit, the operation also collaborated with CATS, G4S Police, private organizations, and multiple units within the department. This collaboration and the use of technology sped up the timeline for trespassing subjects, allowing for real-time information sharing, which led to dozens of suspect identifications and numerous successful apprehensions and seizures. Officers took enforcement action via citation or arrest for criminal activity and collaborated with community members to coordinate efforts to change the culture of these areas in Uptown. Each person on this team is to be commended for their exceptional service, and the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department honors you for your work. Congratulations. Our next recipients for the Chief's Award for Excellence in Policing are members of our Shooting into Occupied Dwelling Task Force. First up, Detective Robert Stark. Next up, Detective Jeffrey Williams. Please start. Why don't you head down? Next up, Officer Jason Greer. No, I guess not. Okay, both you guys can come back upstage. We've got several no-shows. So in August of 2019, Captain Ryan Kendall and Captain Mike Ford were tasked by executive staff to create a task force to provide an immediate response to the rising and ongoing gun violence occurring in Charlotte, specifically shooting into occupied dwellings. This task force members were selected based on their ability to begin immediately, level of expertise, and a unique skill set, knowledge of the people and groups in their respective divisions associated with violent crimes, reputation for conducting thorough investigations, and their ability to use less traditional methods to investigate these types of crimes. This task force worked with the Mecklenburg County District Attorney's Office, Federal and State Probation and Patrol, Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, Homeland Security, and nearly every patrol division and their respective crime reduction units. In addition, they worked with the division investigators and patrol officers. The task force established a great reputation throughout this organization and provided so valuable that its focus was incorporated into the gang unit's primary mission on a permanent basis. Prior to being combined with the gang unit, this task force conducted 50 arrests, seized 24 firearms, and executed 9 search warrants. Now, since the merger, and they've been adopted by the gang unit, they've made an additional 42 arrests, seized an additional 30 firearms, and executed 9 additional search warrants, all related to either assault with a deadly weapon calls or shooting into occupied dwellings. Each member of this task force is to be commended for their service. Congratulations. Our next recipient for the Chief's Award for Excellence in Policing is Officer Jessica Rodriguez for her work at West Boulevard and Remount Road for that initiative. In response to a substantial amount of violent crime around the West Boulevard, Remount Road corridors, Officer Rodriguez initiated the West Remount Initiative in 2019. Because most of this crime appeared to stem from the drug trade at the West Boulevard shops and surrounding locations, they chose to address the violence by focusing directly on the drug offenders. Using various street-level techniques, Officer Rodriguez spent 6 months making key arrests and interviewing suspects to gain intelligence. This proactivity led to a significant drop in the area of violent crime. Officer Rodriguez partnered with the Crime Reduction Unit to focus proactive activities at the West Boulevard Shops area, gaining the respect and trust of local businesses. These officers are to be commended for their service, and the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department honors them for their work. Congratulations, Officer Rodriguez. Our next recipients for the Chief's Award for Excellence in Policing are Officer Matthew Cooper and Officer Ronald Webster. In December of 2019, Romello Wilcox was tragically hit and killed by a vehicle while fleeing from bullies while leaving his school. Following a visit to a family by a CDCP clinician, it was discovered that his mother and 3 siblings would not celebrate Christmas with their traditional tree and presents until sometime after the funeral. Independence community coordinators agreed to ask the mother if they could assist with any needs that she might have. She responded that any gift would be appreciated. Now, the officers went straight to work. Officers reached out to the Public Information Office, which donated $300 for each child, and Officers Cooper and Webster shopped for the children at Walmart using these funds. They also contacted Lowe's Home Improvement, which donated a tree stand, and lights. The officers delivered the tree personally and set it up. Officers also contacted Costco and Sam's, and both organizations donated household items. They also contacted Harris Teeter, Food Lion, Chick-fil-A, and Walmart, who all donated gift cards for the families. Officers then connected with our very own Explore Christmas project and were able to secure a bicycle for each of the children and a host of other gifts for the entire family. These gifts for the grieving family were delivered by community coordinators and members of the department shortly before Christmas last year. Congratulations, Officer Cooper and Officer Webster.
The Chief's Unit Citation. The Chief's Unit Citation is awarded to a departmental unit or section whose performance is indicative of a high degree of initiative, determination, diligence, and cooperative effort in the fulfillment of a difficult mission, operation, task, or project.
Our first recipients of the Chief's Unit Citation are members of the Community Policing Crisis Response Team. First up is Lieutenant Erica Ojanet. Next, Officer Charles Gunter. Officer William Secondi. Officer Stephen Powers. Officer Emily Melton. Officer Brittany Gaddy. Officer Robert Davis. Officer Kenya Medrano. Miss Devin Siasenlote. Miss Alana Harper. Miss Amy Prentice. And finally, Miss Quintasha Cox. These members of our community policing crisis response team have dedicated their lives to assisting individuals, including consumers, officers, and their families that are affected by a crisis. They have worked diligently to develop the policies and training necessary to provide services to those in need. Now, this program launched at the end of April 2019, and between that time and February, this unit responded to more than 2,800 calls involving individuals in crisis. Our community policing crisis response team has also responded to hundreds of community events and meetings and training for others. It's extremely rare to find such a small unit making such a huge impact. Congratulations. Our next unit the next recipients of our Chief's Unit citation are the Targeted Response Apprehension Unit. First up is Sergeant David McCallum. Sergeant Warith Muhammad. Sergeant Daniel Myers. Detective Sean Blee. Detective Brian Comer. Detective Barry Kipp. Detective Everett Huff. Detective Kirsten Barch. Detective Stefan Rucker. And finally, Detective J.D. Williams. During 2019, the members of the Targeted Response Apprehension Unit provided invaluable resources to investigative units across the department, including division detectives such as homicide, domestic violence, robbery, major crash, sexual assault, fraud, crimes against children, electronic monitoring, cyber crimes, human trafficking, vice, firearms, and other outside agencies that resulted in a total of 158 arrests. As part of these arrests, 472 warrants, felony warrants, were served in addition to 144 misdemeanor warrants. The TRAP unit has successfully located multiple suspect vehicles and provided suspect identifications, which were passed on to investigating detectives. During this time frame, the TRAP unit has developed a reputation as one that officers want to be a part of. In fact, 21 ride-alongs have occurred within the unit during the 2019 calendar year. The efforts of the TRAP unit are vital to the CMPD. Congratulations to all. Our final recipients of the day and the Chief's Unit citation are the Homicide Unit. First up, Detective Peggy Barnett. Detective Blair Fitch. Detective Dawn Martin. Detective Miranda James. Detective Joe Dollar. Detective Franchot Pack. Detective Jacqueline Carter. Detective Jonathan Dudley. Detective Christian Sennett. Oh, or not. Detective Nathaniel McCraw. And finally, Detective Robert Wright. From March of 2019 until March of 2020, our homicide detectives worked more than 100 homicides, a 78% increase from the previous year. The homicide unit worked hard while maintaining their caseload and had the ability to obtain a 76% clearance rate. Now, this clearance rate is consistent with 2018 and is significantly higher than the national average clearance rate. During this time frame, these detectives also had the ability to clear 4 additional homicides that occurred prior to 2019. The efforts of the homicide detectives are demonstrative of the high degree of initiative and determination they have for the victims and their families. Congratulations. Today, we recognized 166 individuals who performed incredible acts of bravery, extraordinary acts of kindness, and amazing acts of selflessness. The incredible part about all of this is if you asked each of them if what they did, if they thought that was extraordinary, they would have just said that it was an ordinary part of their day. As we look forward to honoring our employees next year, I wanted to share with you a new category that we will be recognizing individuals in next year. And this category is called the Preservation of Life Medal. This medal may be awarded to an officer who utilized exceptional tactics or verbal approaches beyond the normal demands of duty to sustain human life or to de-escalate any situation that could have resulted in a deadly response. Now, 2 caveats for this medal are the behavior that's considered reckless or rash will not be considered for this award. nor will this award be given if the action taken was to rectify a previous mistake or poor judgment by that same employee being nominated for the award. Excited to be able to present that award next year. I want to thank all of you for joining us from wherever you were to help celebrate the great work, the courageous acts, and the indomitable grit that has been shown by the members of the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department. Thank you and have a blessed day.